Welcome to Bridging the Bay, the podcast where we connect the people, ideas, and partnerships shaping the future of real estate and community across Tampa Bay. I'm your host, Quan Rimmer, and in every episode, we explore how collaboration and leadership are transforming our region, one conversation at a time. Recorded live from the Fabre Framework studio, Fabre Frameworks helps realtors showcase their listings with stunning, high-quality real estate photography that tells every property's story with impact. Learn more at FabreFrameworks.com. Now today, we're shining a light on one of the most critical pieces of our region's housing ecosystem, assisted housing. Behind the scenes, this work helps thousands of households across Hillsborough County access stability, opportunity, and a pathway forward. And leading that effort is someone whose commitment to community and service makes a real difference every single day. Margaret Jones, Director of Assisted Housing at the Tampa Housing Authority. Margaret, welcome to Bridging the Bay.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes,
and allowing us to kind of expand on what we do. I appreciate that.
Of course. Now, for our listeners who may only know Tampa Housing Authority as a housing provider, can you describe the scope of the assisted housing department? Maybe how many households, what programs you oversee, and your role as the director?
Well, just really quickly about myself, I've been with the Tampa Housing Authority for 18 years. I've been in the housing business for about 28 years. So I've been with Tampa for quite most of my business. So my role specifically is to ensure that the money and budgets that we receive from HUD are adequately spent with the families that we can assist. We have more than 12,000 portfolio vouchers per se, or units that we administer or could administer based on the budget provided by HUD. And we have various programs within that 12,000 portfolio. And some of those programs, well, I'll try to remember them all, but non-elderly disabled vouchers, family unification vouchers, HUD VASH vouchers, which were very critical for our community when we first received them. Foster youth initiative vouchers that help individuals, aging out of foster care, very critical for our community. Mainstream vouchers for those individuals that are disabled and homeless. So we have various programs across the portfolio, and we try to, as best we can, serve our community with those vouchers.
Love it. How has the mission of the assisted housing department evolved in recent years, especially given pressures like, rising rents, supply shortages, and broader policy shifts?
So as I tell staff, as I tell community, we have to ebb and flow with the market. I'm sure you remember the 2008, 2009, the crash, right?
Yes.
So we had to really re-engage what we did as a business, because at that time we didn't have enough units for our families. So we had to kind of reconfigure how we're going to house as many people as possible. So when COVID hit, it was very similar, but in the opposite direction. When COVID hit, we had so many individuals that wanted to come to Tampa, invest in communities, put properties online. So with that, with the lack of portfolio or units, drove those rents increasingly above what we ever expected. And with those increasing rents, we were faced with the budget not being able to support 12,000 individuals. So we had to figure out how we were going, and HUD too. HUD really, during that time, did what they could do to fund us. So our budget in 2020 was COVID. So I think 21, our housing assistant budget for our portfolio was about $109 million per year. When this hit and the rents increased so drastically, our rents increased in this community more than, I think, 36%, like immediately. Wow. Across the board. So even if they had a voucher, our families were being priced out. They could not find units. People were losing their vouchers. We had to change policies. We had to allow families longer search times. We gave landlord incentives. We have damage claims for our landlords. We were paying security deposits. Um, and then with the funding, HUD really stepped in, and the first year gave us at least $48 million more. And then the following year, 100. So right now we're at $188 million in HAP funding, but it only supports about 93% of our portfolio. So we need more HAP dollars to fully utilize all the vouchers that we have right now.
Wow. And that shortfall, how do you make it up?
You don't. If you don't have, that's what's so critical about what we do. If you do not have that money from HUD, you cannot support your program. So every month, it's very critical that we evaluate. This is the money we have. These are the people that we serve. How are we going to ensure that everybody gets housed, and we can? So every month I am evaluating. This is the average HAP. Right now, the average HAP that we pay on behalf of a family is about $1,460.
Okay.
Prior to COVID, it was $864. So that's a huge increase.
Definitely.
And we can't, and HUD can't keep up. I mean, the funding for the voucher program is critical. Like even right now, it's very critical. They did the best they could, but again, we just don't have enough funding for that. So we just have to ensure certain programs get help first, and then after that, it's our vouchers that we have to really kind of maybe lose some if we have to fund the ROD program, the special programs, the homeless programs first.
Gotcha. All right. What are some of the biggest misconceptions you encounter about, the housing authorities programs, and what do you wish realtors and landlords understood better?
So our mission, I mean, it's always been a mission of mine, and now with the housing authority, we are trying to always educate not just realtors and landlords and owners, but also families on how to be good tenants, how to be a good landlord. We all have roles, and I just want to say that I am so appreciative of the landlords, of the realtors, of the community, that because without them, we wouldn't have a program. Our families would not have housing. So one of the misconceptions about the program, and I'm really dealing with that right now with another community, is that the families, if they rent a unit, it's our unit. Like we own that unit, that we're responsible for the behavior of a family. And we have to continually remind everybody that the landlord, the owner, signed a lease with the family, and that's the responsibility of the owner and manager. A lot of misconceptions are families don't work. Families are not trying to get off the program, but that is so untrue. We have the largest family self-sufficiency program in the state of Florida, and what we do is try to educate our families, buy a home, get a degree, get an education, and move on if they choose to do so. But we believe that our families are a critical part of our community, and we're trying to educate them to want to do better. And most of them are. Most of them do. Less than 1% of our entire portfolio. Because one of the things I hear, oh, the families don't work, oh, the families don't do this, but that's absolutely not true. Families do work, families do support themselves, and 61% of our program is made up of those receiving SSI or disabled. So a lot of misconception is just not knowing, but I think more so not wanting to know because it's not in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Until it gets into your neighborhood, then they want to know about the program.
That's good. So we speak about the vouchers. So let's talk about the housing choice voucher, the project-based voucher. Those programs are core to your department. What are some current trends or changes in how these programs are administered in Tampa Bay, and how might that affect, the landlords, the property management companies, the local realtors and developers?
So with our programs, of course, they're highly regulated. HUD, depending on the administration, changes policy. We just received a policy change not last week, rescinding a notice related to criminal background checks. So previously it was like a little bit more lenient. Now it's going towards we must screen them a little bit more in depth. So we have to change with the administration. We have to change with the regulations. I think with the community, it's more so understanding the voucher in and of itself. Um, it's important that landlords, owners understand that they have the right to enforce their lease, to evict that family, um, if they would a non-Section 8 family. We try to educate them on that. The trend is we have a set amount of vouchers. And one of the things that we are seeing, because HUD implemented in 2017 what's called small area fair market rents. Before, we had 5 payment standards, and that meant, that's how much the housing authority could pay up to based on household composition. HUD changed that rule. So now every zip code has a payment standard. And what HUD's policy was trying to do was get families to move to higher opportunity areas and away from lower opportunity areas. And it has worked. It has happened. But the downfall is that a lot of the landlords that rent in, and I don't want to say lower opportunity areas because that's not exactly the right term for these zip codes, because HUD designated a whole entire zip code lower opportunity, which is not really true. Maybe census tracts, not a whole zip code. But some of our landlords that rent in, like, just say 33605, are not getting renters because they're all moving to higher opportunity areas, which is okay. So it's just getting landlords to understand the complexity of what we do. And then the project-based program, a great program for developers, so that way they can bridge that gap, provide the funding needed for that development. But unfortunately, HUD has set a cap on how many vouchers can be project-based. So we're almost at our cap. So there's been a lot of discussion at HUD whether or not that cap will be removed so that we could take more vouchers and attach it to developments to create more housing, because with project-based voucher program, it's a great program in that families pay 30% of their income. That is it. The screening might be a little bit different, but with the housing choice voucher, you go in the community, it's a choice, so you pay more than 30% of your income. You could pay up to 50, you could pay up to 60 after that first year. So great programs, but I think depending on the administration, just whether or not they'll change or evolve. We need more vouchers, of course. We need more funding, so we're hoping to see that in the future.
That's good. Hoping so as well. I know that THA offers a home ownership option for eligible voucher holders. Can you walk us through how that works, how realtors can help participants transition from renting to owning?
So we've had the homeownership program, and it's a voluntary program. Housing authorities don't have to do it, but we opted to do it because we want our families to own homes. We want them to be self-sufficient. So we've operated this program since I've been here and even before I was here. So we've had more than 100, probably 150 homeowners go through this program. Right now we're at 38 and we're trying to increase that. The market is what the market is.
Yeah.
So it had slowed down a little bit. So we have one person dedicated to getting families prepped for home ownership. And typically what we want them to do is go through the family self-sufficiency program first. That program allows that family to build what's called an escrow account. So as an example, a family, let's just say, had no income when they came onto the FSS program. Once they get an income, the calculation will change so that any additional half that we would have paid to the landlord, we're now going to put it into an account for them. That account grows. So every month, I think we probably pay out at least $20,000 in escrow to the families, hoping that they take that money to go towards a home and be home ownership ready. So we teach them in the FSS program how to be home ownership ready. If they are ready, then we send them to our home ownership coordinator. They have to qualify for a loan just like any other family would. They have to have certain income, escrow account, and then that voucher allows them to be in a program for 15 years or if disabled, the life of the loan. So it is a great, great program, and we're trying to continually push that program for our families.
That sounds like a great program. Can you tell the audience where they could find out more information regarding this program?
So the program is only for Housing Choice Voucher participants. So you have to be on the program. And right now, our wait list is closed for the Housing Choice Voucher program. We did open it up in 2021 for 1 week and received 18,000 applications for the voucher program.
Wow.
We had to do a lottery because there was no way we could manage 18,000. And then now it was at 3,000. Now we're at 800 vouchers. Unfortunately, because of funding, we have not been able to issue anything off the list. But if they're on the program, they can reach out to their housing specialist, and then they can refer them to the FSS program and then to home ownership program.
Perfect. What role do stakeholder partnerships with landlords, brokerages, social and support service agencies play in your department's goals, and how can realtors or developers approach a mutually beneficial relationship with the Tampa Housing Authority?
Very deep question.
It is.
So as I said earlier, without realtors, without landlords, without owners, we wouldn't operate. Again, so we're very thankful for our partners in the community. We would just like to strengthen that relationship so that they would understand the complexity of what it is that we do, how we can benefit each other. Right now, I have a lot of influx of landlords, owners, realtors wanting to rent to veterans. It's like the push right now. So we're trying to really educate them on, how to rent to a veteran. What does that look like in case management? The stakeholder aspect, I think for us, as I said earlier, I think just understanding what the Tampa Housing Authority does. So a little story, I live in Pasco County, and this is years ago, I wore a Tampa Housing Authority shirt, which I do no longer wear, to pick up my child from roller skating. As soon as I walked in, someone saw my shirt, and the first thing they said was complaining about housing authorities and that, they're doing this, they're doing that. You need to go take care of that. Just not even understanding the role, where I'm from, what we do, how we do it. So I think it's just really educating, being partners, wanting to understand. And I think because of the way that the market is changing, we do have a lot more landlords on board, a lot more realtors really communicating, reaching out, which we're so appreciative of, coming in, wanting to rent the units, wanting to understand. We have a monthly landlord meeting that anybody can attend to really just provide information. But we're always, if we don't provide the information or if we don't provide great customer service, no one's going to kind of want to come back. So we too, not just our partners, but we too, we're trying to streamline the way we do business. Because if you were to poll someone, if I was to poll the individuals in your hallway, what do you think about housing authorities? I probably get a mixed bag, right? So it's just really trying to get people to understand we're here for a purpose. It's not to really just let families do what they want, but to educate, to provide housing. Housing is so critical.
Yes.
When the rents increased and when I opened our wait list, the biggest issue that we were finding that a lot of our elderly individuals were becoming homeless. That is still a trend today because they can't afford the rent. So, we were getting rent increases from landlords because the market changed. So generally rent increases would be about $50 a month. Generally people, now they were asking for $1,000 because the market was changing. So it's just educating. It's just education. And for the community or anybody that wants to know, just reach out. We are so open to wanting to kind of really talk about what we do.
Yes. I mean, you brought it up. So I want to talk about, as Tampa Bay faces that housing affordability and the supply chain challenges, what barriers are vouch holders facing in today's rental market? And what can the real estate community do to help bridge those gaps?
So I would say right after COVID, there was huge barriers for families because the vacancies, there weren't a lot of inventory. There wasn't a lot of inventory. So individuals coming from, as an example, New York or Texas or wherever, were coming to this community, renting these units at exorbitant prices, driving out voucher holders. They were not able to find units. Even in my community in Pasco, I bought my house in 2012, $75,000. And I will never move.
No.
I will never move. But in that same community, people were coming from all over the states, buying the homes at 300,000, 250,000. Like, I knew this was like they were getting ripped off, honestly. So it was a tough time for our voucher holders then. So we were trying to do everything we could to encourage participation of landlords. The damage claim, we instituted a policy that allowed landlords to put a claim into the housing authority for up to $2,500 if a family damaged the unit.
Okay.
But the landlord had to do their due diligence as well. Did you send the certified notice to the family? Did you let them know what they damaged, the Florida statute law? So we did all those incentives. We increased the voucher time frame for the tenants so they had more time to search. But our families used to find a unit in 45 days. It was taking them up to 6 months to find a unit. Families were not leasing. They were losing their vouchers. And once you lose it, that's it. They can't get back on the program. So we have to, again, we ebb and flow with the market. So we constantly watch the market. And right now, the market is in favor of our families. So we're back to the families taking about 45 days to find a unit.
Good.
One of the biggest things we have been seeing, though, is the security deposit request. So I just had one today. The rent is $4,000. They want $8,000 in security deposit. Last month's rent, first month's rent. That's not going to happen, and our families can't afford that. So it's just understanding like what our families can afford and they can't afford. And right now, our families are really finding units. So we're not seeing that. We are seeing a trend of rents decreasing. So a community in Riverview, and after COVID happened, as an example, a single family home, 4-bedroom might have rented for $5,000. It is running for $3,000 now. Nice. So we now know the market is changing. I saw an article on, I think it was Tampa Bay Times, that Tampa is leading in foreclosure rates. So they can't sell, they want to rent, or they're just going to abandon those units. So I think that's right now why we're seeing a lot more landlords wanting to rent to veterans, because they can't sell. But we're appreciative of it. We are so appreciative of it.
That's good. I'm still stuck on someone asking for $16,000 to move in.
Yes. Well, and we explain to them, like, we negotiate, say, security deposit, you can ask up to 2 months rent is pretty reasonable, but you can't get first month's and last month. So we do explain to landlords, we do negotiate with them. Okay. We do talk to them, because sometimes what we found too, investors were coming in, buying homes to owners, out-of-state owners maybe, and then having local property managers managing that property. Some were managing them as they should, doing a great job, and some not so much. So, after COVID, I think it was a really learning experience for everybody, how to rent, how to manage. So that's why we're doing a video series to landlords and tenants. How to be a good tenant, how to maintain your property, how to be a good landlord, how to enforce your lease, how to collect a security deposit, how to go into your unit and evaluate. So a kind of a roundabout, kind of lost track there with the rental market. But right now, there's so many units available that our families are really being able to rent those units. So we're not having a difficult time at this time.
Good. And with that, we'll take a quick break and be right back with more of Bridging the Bay, recorded live from the Fabre Framework studio. Fabre Frameworks, Tampa Bay's leading real estate photography company, helping realtors capture listings with stunning, high-quality photos that make every property stand out. From residential homes to luxury estates, they bring every space to life. Learn more at FebrayFrameworks.com. And we're back, Bridging the Bay, with Margaret Jones from Tampa Housing Authority. Margaret, tell me, for master plan communities or large-scale residential developers, how might Tampa Housing Authority's assisted housing program intersect with their plans? For example, through mixed income phases, rental assistance integration, or relocation of voucher holders during a redevelopment or a modernization? Just what do you think?
So we so in order for us to attach any kind of vouchers to a development or a financial plan or mixed development, mixed use development, there has to be a request for proposals submitted and put out by the housing authority. We and that's a HUD rule. There's other intricacies to that, but an RFP has to go out, and interested individuals, developers, investors have to apply to that, and then we go through a whole screening process and application process, and those individuals that are determined eligible or best suited for the vouchers, then they're awarded that. So generally, we put an RFP out once a year for our HUD Bash program. So that has resulted in about 3 to 4 project-based developments for our veterans. So it's very competitive, and right now HUD has put a cap on, not currently, but has always had a cap on how many vouchers can be attached to a development, and it's set at 30%. So right now we are almost at our capacity to add vouchers to a development, and to participate in that way. However, once the development is established, we certainly have voucher holders all the time looking for rental units. And I know developers use the project-based program for that gap funding. There's LIHTC, but everybody wants that voucher to attach to that property. And I totally get it, but we are at our capacity and the ability to do that. So I know HUD is kind of looking at maybe reviewing some exceptions to that, maybe increasing the cap so we can continually do that. There's a lot of benefits to attaching vouchers to the project-based program for the family, for the developer, for the community in and of itself. So, but once the development's made, if it's up and running, we can certainly send voucher holders to them to provide that rental assistance, that constant hat payment, if you will, every single month. So we can do that as well.
Good. And in what ways can realtors in the Tampa Bay region get more actively involved with the Housing Authority?
I would say want to understand what we do. And I have to say that they have been involved. Realtors have been involved, owners have been involved, managers have been involved, but I feel like it's because of the market. The market has changed a little bit, so I'm hoping we still see that momentum. I want the community to really understand what it is that we do. I want them to really see the face of our family. Our families, 42% of our families are single moms, working single moms, trying to pay their mortgage or their rent, mortgage too, but pay the rent, pay daycare, find transportation. So one of the best aspects of the Family Self-Sufficiency Program is that we have families on there that maybe lack transportation or their car broke down. Can you imagine working a $15 an hour job? Now your car broke down. How are you going to pay for that? So the Family Self-Sufficiency Program allows the family to kind of borrow from their escrow, fix their car, maybe get a car. But most of our families are working, but they're working, I don't want to say minimum wage jobs, but jobs that cannot support the rent in our community. So a family of 3 would probably have to make around $80,000 a year or more to afford the rents right now. That is impossible. That is impossible. I mean, even some of our staff probably couldn't afford some of these rents. So it's a great program, but I wish that the community understood it better, and understood the face of, or saw the face of, our families, because they're hardworking individuals that maybe are raising children, trying to go to school, trying to juggle a million things and support themselves. So,
I know that the Housing Authority has implemented new inspection frameworks this year, such as the national standards for physical inspection of real estate. I think you call it like Inspire.
Inspire.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then the rental portal enhancements. What operational changes or innovations are you most excited about in the assisted housing space? And how would they impact the property management partners and realtors?
So, Inspire has been a long held process by HUD. There are many pilot programs that we participated in, and finally, Inspire was the result. HUD actually delayed the implementation of Inspire till next year, but we opted to go ahead and implement it because we have been doing it anyway. We've been part of that pilot program. The Inspire is supposed to be less subjective for the inspector, for the owner, so that we can go out there and maybe even, move away from aesthetics, really focus on the safety for that family. So Inspire has been, I think, a beneficial tool for our community. And we started it in January. A lot of intricacies and changes about it, like the hardwiring of the smoke detector. So one of the meetings we had went to, that was one of the issues that one of our, I think it was a property manager, that part of the Inspire rules that the smoke detector, one, must be inside the bedroom, outside the bedroom, and it must either be hardwired or 10-year life battery. And if it didn't, you had to replace them. So it can become very expensive. But it's a standard that we try to kind of relay to the community, be prepared. This is what's coming. And landlords kind of came on board. But for us, we're always trying to streamline. We're trying to make it so that landlords, owners, realtors want to rent from us. So again, if I was to ask anybody on the street, why would you not rent to the Tampa Housing Authority? Like if you were an owner, and a lot of them would say red tape, right? So one of the meetings we had in Pinellas County, which is a whole nother subject related to income source protections, but it was related to the red tape of housing authorities and all the things you have to jump through. So it has been our goal and our mission to really streamline that process. Make it so that landlords could rent their unit in less than 30 days. We understand it is a business for our landlords. We understand that families need housing as quickly as possible. So we're trying to turn things around more timely. And we're implementing the portals for our landlords. We're implementing what's called Bob AI for applicants. So everything can be done through a portal. There's no email exchange. There's no paper we have to pass back and forth. Just so it's more automated for landlords. And if you're dealing with paper and you have to call in all the time, you're not going to want to deal with that. So, but we want to educate the community and let them know up front the process might be a little bit more time consuming, but after that, all we require is we inspect the property once a year. We determine eligibility once a year for the family, and that's really it. I mean, there's a little bit behind the scenes of that because our families have to comply. But we're really excited about moving forward to the more automated industry. So we have a lot of things going on at the Housing Authority. We're going to have, little chat boxes and, stuff. So it's a little bit more automated. Now, there's downfalls to that because families sometimes shy away from that. They're not really accustomed, not all families, but some, maybe elderly, disabled, are veterans. So we're just trying to accommodate all aspects of that, but really the automation part of it.
I like that. Just to provide our listeners more context, can you explain a little bit more about Inspire and what it's utilized for?
So before it was housing quality standards. I mean, it's still called housing quality standards, but HUD a long time ago, Congress rather, really wanted to understand how the units looked in the community. And this is from, different housing authorities may not have maintained their properties as they should, but there was no report that Congress could get that was uniform. because there was different inspections for the Housing Choice Voucher Program. There were different inspections for public housing. So they wanted one uniform inspection module. And so it took almost 7 to 8 years to really formulate that. And it's supposed to be less subjective. So we don't want two inspectors going out and looking at the same unit and coming back with different failed items. So this Inspire is supposed to be very objective, and that it's pass or fail. Pass or fail. There is no guesswork to it. So that way the landlord understands, and that report can be submitted to Congress, to HUD on an instant. And that's what they want. They want one uniform standard. So that was how it was implemented.
Perfect. On our recent episode, we had Habitat for Humanity of Hillsborough County, and we talked about collaboration across agencies to expand housing opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you were brought up. Where do you see the synergy between the Tampa Housing Authority and Habitat, especially around pathways to homeownership?
So we, as I mentioned earlier, our our home ownership coordinator, she works very closely with the individuals of Habitat for Humanity. And what we do is we refer all of our veterans to Habitat for Humanity because they have a great program that can really get them housed. Because of the different calculations, right now it doesn't seem to mesh, like the programs like attaching a voucher with Habitat for Humanity right now, but we are working very closely with them to send referrals and maybe figure out a way that we can do that. Because with the voucher, there's the tenant would pay a portion, and I think with Habitat for Humanity, it's like a different calculation. But we are working closely with them to ensure those that maybe are deemed eligible, maybe not so much for the home ownership aspect, we would send to them as a referral, especially our veterans.
I like that. And what opportunities exist for organizations like realtors, brokerages, nonprofits, even corporate partners to work together with the Housing Authority to address the housing gap more strategically?
The housing gap. I think it depends, right? We rely heavily on the inventory of what the community can provide. And I'm going to bring it up. It's really probably a hot topic. You know, it's kind of like a really important topic for me. I used to work a long time ago in East Orange, New Jersey, East Orange Housing Authority. Close to Newark, it was the sister agency. But East Orange was very small. We had a small program. But East Orange, New Jersey was so well advanced. They had income source protections already for the voucher holders. Meaning, of course, if you had a voucher, the landlord, whomever, could not say, I don't rent a Section 8. They also had a rental cap, meaning the landlord could not go beyond that rental cap. So for our community, one of the things that I was excited about when the city of Tampa and Hillsborough County really adopted the income source protection law, because there was no instantaneous denial of a voucher holder just because they had a voucher. They didn't want to get to know the voucher holder. They didn't care. And when that happened and landlords had to really evaluate whether or not they could be good renters, I was excited about that because it really opened the door for more opportunity for us to really, understand what it is that we do. But when it was repealed across the state of Florida, it was a little sad, because then families now had to go back out and fight for a rental unit, in essence. Really try to sell themselves, as they should. But now we're back to landlords saying, when this lease runs out, I'm not going to rent a Section 8. We had one full community, we had to relocate 30 families because they didn't want to rent to Section 8. For no other reason than they were a voucher holder. And I know HUD is moving away from, or, the disparate impact, but 69% of our voucher holders are people of color. So to me, if you're saying to somebody, I'm not going to rent to me, it's almost indiscriminate practice because you don't want to rent to somebody who has a voucher holder. And there's so many intricate parts to that. But it would really be important to embrace individuals with a voucher holder because there's so much more to them than just, the negative stigma that they hear. If you pull up a YouTube video, you'll see all these things about, oh, this is how my Section 8 tenant left my unit. Well, let's dive into that. Why did the family leave the unit that way? Because you didn't look into the unit, you didn't enforce your lease, you left the unit, you didn't go and look at the unit, you left the family there. So just really quickly, a story in East Orange, New Jersey, I also did inspections. So we ran a program, but I also did inspections. I loved it. So I went out there and this landlord had housed a family of 9. In the north, they have units that are built up, right? Like here was kind of, we don't have attics and basements.
Right.
There you had attics and basements, right? There was a huge unit, beautiful. So he rented to a family of 9. And we inspected the unit, family moved in. So we went back the following year. We inspected the unit. The unit was destroyed, right? It was just destroyed. The walls were painted black. The only part of the house that was really nice was the attic because they were subletting to another person. There was no electricity, by the way, either. It was just deplorable. But the problem with that was the landlord has a responsibility to enforce their lease as you would a non-Section 8 family or a non-voucher holder. So it's just really understanding that practice. Going into your unit, we always tell landlords, go and look at your filters. Go do that. Go collect. I know we don't collect rent anymore per se, but it's just really not letting the family destroy your property. It's an asset. Just really being involved, not renting the unit, not walking away, but being involved. Enforce your lease. If they don't pay the rent, and we tell landlords, if the rent of the family is $15, collect it. Collect your rent. Just as you're accepting our payment, accept that payment. So it's just really, again, about education, really understanding what we do, understanding our families as well.
All right. Could you share with us any success stories regarding someone going from the program and then moving into home ownership?
We have many. I mean,
give me one that touches your heart.
All of them.
All of them.
I'm so proud of them. I'm proud of the work that our team does. I'm proud of the home ownership coordinator. I'm proud of the housing specialist because what we do is we wear so many hats. We're counselors, we're mediators, we're lease enforcers, we're psychologists, we're all of that.
Magicians,
yes. We're so many things, but there's just so many that have graduated our program, have gotten great jobs, have moved on, have bought homes. I can't say one specifically, but we're just grateful that those families took those opportunities because all you have to do is just agree. Like the family self-sufficiency program, just agree. You can't lose anything. Just agree to do it and you'll see the changes. But I think sometimes families get afraid to do that, to step out of their comfort zone when they're not used to it. But I'm proud of all of them, all the homeowners. I mean, it's hard work and I'm just proud of all of them.
I'm glad. Well, that wraps up today's episode of Bridging the Bay, recorded live from the Fabre Frameworks studio. Fabre Frameworks, more than just a podcast studio, they're your one-stop shop for real estate photography that elevates your listings. Learn more at FabreFrameworks.com. And a huge thank you to Margaret Jones and the entire team at the Tampa Housing Authority for the critical work that you're doing every single day to support families across our community. And to our listeners, remember, when we bridge gaps in understanding, access, and opportunity, we bridge the Bay itself. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, follow, and share the podcast so you never miss an opportunity to connect with the voices shaping real estate and community across Tampa Bay. Until next time, I'm Quan Rimmer, and remember, when we bridge the Bay, we bridge the community closer.